Hello and welcome to Talk the Walk. I'm Azam Khan. It's been 1 year to this week since the 2021 Hong Kong Legislative Council election, the first one since the patriots-only revamp. Since then, it's been a year of policies to refocus Hong Kong's economic and social priorities, all in the midst of pandemic restrictions in the city. How has the redirection of Hong Kong fared, especially given the circumstances, and what are the expectations for next year? My guest today to unpack the topic is Nixie Lam, Legislative Council and UN Association of China member. Ms. Lam, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Hello, everyone.
I want to start with the by-election results from early this week and just get your thoughts on it, especially as a election committee member yourself.
I think it's quite interesting because, as the AVR, we actually have Horace before, and then I went to work with the government. So we're trying to fill our seatings. And the Chinese doctor actually won the seating back. So what we viewed is that I think especially for our constituency, it's mainly about, especially for this election, this by-election, a lot of people are actually having a different views on how they pick on the candidates. They are looking for what is actually missing in the council to see, well, maybe a Chinese doctor is essential because basically after the fifth wave of pandemic, a lot of people starting to understand, well, maybe we need Chinese doctor representative to see whether they can work along with the Western doctor to do some like hybrid working together model or whatever, or trying to launch something that will be essential for the Hong Kong market, or even having Chinese medicine ideology or knowledge aboard in international development and things like that. So I think that is how our Mr. Chen won for this time, and as well for a lot of the other candidates that won is basically having artificial intelligence backgrounds and also some experience in trading in other areas of China and things like that. I think that's how people pick up like the missing link within the council to try to make sure we have enough expertise in the Legislative Council to actually comment and giving views for the Hong Kong government.
Right, and it's been a busy year for you and your peers, especially with COVID and the related duties you guys had to do, the community work. What would you say has been the biggest impact of LegCo members this year, including yourself, and where do you think there's room for improvement looking towards next year?
Well, I think starting from the beginning, we have a feel like time off that we cannot just go have our meetings in the council. That's why we have the resort to Zoom meetings and things like that. It will be quite challenging for newbies like me and some other members to try to handle all the rules for meetings, and as well as having the meetings on Zoom and not be able to be in the council and talk about some collaboration with other legislative councillor. So it is quite challenging in the beginning, but at the same time it actually enhances our skill sets on all those technology based stuff. And I think as well for the government, we realize a lot of the digital transformation is actually very essential. Hence, you see a lot of the discussion around that part within some panel meetings were heavily commented on. A lot of the legislature was saying, well, we need to up our skills and up our speed on all those transformations to make sure like Hong Kong is up to what an international city should be at. So I think basically that is the biggest challenging part, but now we're getting much better anyway. So we're good at the moment.
Right, there's quite a few new members, like new timers like yourself. So you said so it's just been an adjustment period to sort of streamline a lot of that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, because I mean, for electoral committee constituency, we have new 40 members, And a lot of people, I think, like myself, you need to look at what sort of topics or major issues that you are majoring in, because it's impossible for us to focusing on everything, right? So for geographical constituency, basically you are looking heavily in within your own constituency geographically, but and also for functional constituencies as well. But for electoral committee constituencies, basically on a lot of the holistic planning or like a mega planning things on how you view things, what is more important maybe in long term for Hong Kong. So some of the discussion ways of thinking and discussion on how we're gonna set our tones will be a little bit different, especially when we discuss internally as the ABR. We have 19 members, back to 19 now. We do have like legislature from different sectors. So our views will be coming from different views. So sometimes it might be a little bit contradictory sometimes, but it is a very good, healthy early discussion on how the actual council will have, that sort of the discussion. So that is actually quite interesting, and everybody is actually adapting on that. So I think that's good. I mean, previously, if it's heavily focusing on geographical constituency, a lot of people might be very focusing on smaller issues, but ignoring the long-term benefits for Hong Kong's development. So now is a bit of a difference than before.
Right. And obviously, this past year has been a year of national security law being put to use on an array of different fronts. So what are your personal thoughts on its implementations and impact so far?
I think it definitely put a big pause on all those violence acts around town. But still, there's a lot of things I think the government still needs to work on. A lot of people still doesn't really understand what is national security law. They might have some misunderstanding. They might be scared off a bit because of a lot of the Western propaganda. They need to learn more. That's why we have a National Security Education Day to try to promote that. I think the concept of that is very important for any citizens of any country, any cities to actually understand. That is the fundamental stability of a city. And on top of that, I think we need to be more confident on our systems that the law is actually trying to protect us from all those violence and nonsense in town.
Right, and it's been a learning curve for the government themselves as well, right? So it's not just for the people to learn it, but it's for everyone.
Yeah.
And obviously, the chief executive, John Lee, is on his maiden 4-day trip to Beijing, and the border reopening is top on the agenda for that. So how significant is that border reopening for the economy, and what else are you hoping personally to gain? What else would you like to see being gained from this trip?
Yeah, I think everybody's so excited as well as me. If having the border opening is very important, I think a lot of the families were looking for unification with their family members in different parts of China. It's not very easy for business people in Hong Kong to travel along. I've spoken to a lot of like factory owners that they have to work a long time, having quarantines for 21 days, 14 days, and sometimes you have to add on another 7 days if you're going to a smaller town in a province or so whatsoever. It's basically it's quite hectic. It's not so smooth as before, and it's heavily affecting their business model and stuff like that. And as well, I think a lot of the businesses like the cross-border transportation, I spoke to the owner of the cross-border buses company, they haven't been having any business for 3 years. So a lot of the businesses were heavily impacted. So they're hopefully having to, now they're actually doing a lot of preparation work to hopefully have the border reopen and having their business back and hiring the people back. I think at the moment, a lot of the industries are having lack of labor. Lack of skilled labor, even for like tourism businesses or transportation, lack of drivers. So a lot of issues are still, even though the border is open, we are still looking at a lot of issues. I think the government really need to work with a lot of the industry leaders to make sure once the border is open, everything is smooth.
What about on like Greater Bay Area integration, which is obviously a big, a big frontier?
So that is quite interesting. I remember we went to the DAB went to Malaysia and Singapore. I was in that tour in September. We spoke to a lot of business leaders in that area, and they're saying, well, we would really like to explore the opportunity in GBA, but we feel safer to sort of like set up an office in Hong Kong first and then try to tap into the GBA opportunity. So I think they are actually already looking for it. In Malaysia, they already set up an office in Hong Kong. We are looking for more collaboration in it, but if having the border closed, then nothing really could be done, right? You can only have Zoom meetings and stuff like that. So I think they're already having conversation with me. The Malaysian side has been speaking to me to trying to have like line up meetings in January, trying to explore what we can do as a Hong Kong GBA representatives, what we can do and what sort of business opportunity that they can get. And actually a lot of planning is actually pending due to the border closing. So I think that is something really, really big for Hong Kong market, Hong Kong economy to reboost.
Ms. Lam, I need to pause you right there while we step away for a quick break.
Sure.
Don't go anywhere. After the break, we'll be right back with Nixie Lam. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Talk the Walk. I'm speaking with LegCo member Nixie Lam.
Hello, everyone.
Ms. Lam, a lot has been said about the need to empower the youth who are stuck in the poverty cycle in the city.
Yeah.
So what have you seen in your community work this past year, which has been eye-opening with that regard? And what more can be done moving forward?
I think the main part for youth to be feeling like they're part of the city is the ownership and the involvement that they can get. There's like pros and cons for having a huge pandemic like this. A lot of the youth actually came out to try to volunteer and contribute themselves to help out the situation. That's how we can see the opportunity to have them to contribute to their own community and having some views and having having them their power to be more creative and plan on things within their own community, which is very familiar to them. So I think having them is a big empowerment for youth. I think when we are talking about youth, it's really about whether we lay out some pathways for them to creatively grow their dream and how we can empower them to chase that dream. So I think one thing I got this here is the youth development blueprints.
The new blueprint, the new government blueprint.
The government handed out this few days ago. And I think the main point here, if you can see from here, is inspire, support, and embrace. I think that's very important. We need to support them. We need to inspire them to chase for their dream and also to embrace their ability. I remember we used to I joined some youth groups before, right, associations, and we bring our Hong Kong youth students over to mainland China to help out the Boao Forum. And a lot of people are saying, well, the Hong Kong youth are very creative. They are very good at language abilities, communication skills. And this is how we can actually embrace them, give them opportunities. If you look at the blueprint, it mentions that we will provide more opportunity for them to even go to UN, to be volunteer for a while and then to understand. I think that is a very good initiative. It's basically because for the UN platform, it's not only on how you develop your own skills, for you to understand how our motherland, China, is actually situated within the international world and how we are formulating our thoughts and things like that, how our international relationship are with other country, which, well, previously in Hong Kong, we don't have much chances to get in touch with that part. So I think a lot of the initiatives are very interesting. I got my loads of labels on this book. Let's try to look into the details and hopefully I think all the youth in Hong Kong are really need to have a look and how they can develop themselves. I mean, it's quite interesting
Obviously the youth is generally around the world is not labeled into one certain age bracket. But in this day and age, the youth between 16 to 18 and 18 to 21, it's very different needs, different expectations, different priorities. So how do you personally, how do you think that should be, what nuances need to be kept in mind just in a macro sense?
I think that's a very good question, because previously we often just say, well, the youngsters, and by ignoring some of the people, say people like me, I'm at work already, but we do have youngsters that are still studying, and the biggest challenge for them may be which subject they're going to choose for their future career development or planning or things like that. Or what about those like youngsters that's already out from work and starting to build their career? So people in different stage and in different age brackets, they will have different needs and different support that they need from the government. So I think this for this blueprints, they actually identify 3 types of youth that they need to look after. One is as I mentioned, are the students that are still studying, and the other parts are the youngsters, and the other one are the youth that is already at work. So they have different focuses, and also this time they're saying we'll launch a youth dashboard to actually understand their thoughts. I think that is quite innovative to tap into a more interactive sort of ways, rather than what our previous ways is always, well, this is what we already prepare and this is what we're going to give you, so you follow what the government's going to do. But now it's more like an interactive, you can feedback to what your views are, and then we can try to see what we can work around some of the plans. So I'm actually looking forward on how all the implementation of all those initiatives, because like at the back of this booklet, just like the policy address, there's a lot of promises with numbers, actual numbers in it. So I think I will have to get hold on this book and start taking once things were done. So that would be quite interesting.
Yeah, well, aside from reaching out to the youth, I want to talk about also the reach out to the ethnic minority community from this year. I know you yourself, if I recall, did a lot of work with the Muslim community specifically during COVID, turning the mosque into a COVID center and helping to educate about how that the COVID restriction measure policies can be streamlined, et cetera. So I wanted to just get your thoughts on what has been done in that regard, and perhaps what more you plan to do.
Yeah, I think the ethnic minorities in Hong Kong they are always here, but sort of like a lot of the Chinese community are quite shy to talk to them, or quite shy to sort of trying to understand their culture. I think if I can communicate with them, then maybe I could be the person that can push around different sectors within the community, like the commercial sector, like the governments, to try to collaborate more. As you mentioned, the vaccination center is one of the initiatives that I'll try to push, because a lot of the Muslim women, it's quite inconvenient for them to go to the traditional Hong Kong centers where they have to review their arms and things like that for the vaccinations. But on top of that, we also see some of the long-term problems where they might have a lack of Chinese speaking or reading ability. What we can help to do, we've already pushing the governments to try to see whether we can have some initiatives on that. And also for the employment, there's some of the large organizations that they say they are willing to hire more ethnic minority, but just that they sort of don't really know the community. They don't know how to communicate with them. I started a plan with a bus company where it's quite successful, and they actually are already talking to other bus companies on the hirings for them, for the community. So a lot of the things really about communication, how you just need to talk more and then talk about how we can explore on working together.
So an awareness of understanding.
Yeah.
I also wanted to get your take on the recent WTO ruling on that, the fact that they made a ruling that the United States is flouting international trade rules by labeling imports from Hong Kong as those from China. And it was an outcome which Washington had rejected. And just to remind you in the audience that this was following the 2019 unrest, and the U.S. under Trump said that goods from Hong Kong should be relabeled to regain entry. And it was a move to sort of undermine or underscore the financial hub status of Hong Kong. But now that ruling has been, the WTO has come out and said that it holds no water and it breaks different violations, but Washington was not happy about it. So I just wanted to get your take on that ruling.
Yeah, I mean, if you're living in Hong Kong, has been working or having business in Hong Kong, you definitely know Hong Kong is a separate custom territories and should be treated equally with other members of the WTO. The move that the U.S. trying to label every product in Hong Kong, made in Hong Kong to made in China, is basically a political move, right? As everybody would know. They don't really care about whether the fairness or human rights. I mean, it's basically on how they can fabricate things on different countries and trying to label China or label Hong Kong into violation of human rights. I'm quite disappointed at the Biden administration. Basically, it's like everybody knows, Trump's been doing a lot of maniac baseless rules,
aggressive,
aggressive move around the world, not only on China, but for Biden, such a seasoned politician, they're still continuing on this path. I don't know where it's actually going. And for Adam to say that we're gonna do it anyway, even the WTO judge that is unfair, we're gonna just do whatever our way, then why are you joining these sort of like international collaboration if you're not even like abiding to what is judgment?
Yeah, it's also interesting that China is usually the one that gets pointed at by the United States for not following international rule-based order, and the WTO says, this is not cool, and then they say, well, we don't take you seriously anyway because it's to do with our national security.
If you are saying that you're trying to embrace Hong Kong as a special administrative region, such and such, then why are you doing all this labeling, compulsive labeling change just to undermine Hong Kong's status as a fair members of the WTO? I mean, this is totally unfair and totally opposite to what they're saying that they're trying to achieve through whatever human rights or whatever fairness they're trying to do. So I think it after what we have seen in 2019, all those political manipulation in Hong Kong, implemented in Hong Kong, we know what US is playing. It is basically using Hong Kong as a weapon to attack mainland China, to its international status or whatever. But I mean, that's so much so that we can do. I mean, we can only resort to the WTO. I mean, the US got 60 days to appeal, and I'm not really sure that they decided to appeal or not. I mean, apparently, even though they appeal or not, they're still not going to follow the rules.
I have to ask you, what is Nixie's, let's call it a Christmas wish list for 2023? What are the three most important focuses you think that the Hong Kong government and yourself should focus on to get the economy back on track?
I think that the first Christmas wish is this is the most important things, I think, for the Hong Kong youth, is the blueprint, the successful implementation of the blueprint. I've been a member of the Youth Development Commission for quite some years, and we're trying to push to have a blueprint for youth, and now it's finally here. That is something that we're actually looking for to help and embrace the youth in the long-term development. That is one of the most important things. I think the second thing is on how we can get back to our economy. A lot of the business owners been suffering for so many years, and they are actually looking for reopening the border and restarting their businesses. We see part of the tourism industry, outbound business coming back. I hope they can have good business, as we can see on news, and then looking for some inbound tourists to come into Hong Kong for sure. And also for the government, I think my biggest wish is basically a smooth collaboration between the Legislative Council and the government to ensure all the policy, long-term good benefits policies is well implemented in Hong Kong, so we can finally get back on our feet and make a good Hong Kong back.
I believe that's all the time we have. Nixie Lam, thank you so much for taking the time
Thank
to
you.
speak with me. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you the same time next week. Goodbye.